What's going on, Wolfpack? Welcome to the channel's first ever Q&A. I want this to be entertaining and interesting, a little different format here, a little bit longer today. So sit back, sort some cards, and let's dive into your questions. Chillmaster asked, what is your favorite As Lay Dying song? And another question, what is your favorite MTG set? So I thought long and hard about this, probably too long. Favorite As Lay Dying song, pretty hard. I mean, I'm gonna narrow it down to three: Meaning and Tragedy, Confined, and Forever. Just going with some OG classics. Love a lot of their music, a lot of new stuff too, but there's nothing like those first couple of albums that were truly something special. My first real metal experience when I was back in junior high, whatever, 20 years ago. For my favorite MTG set, I'm going to go with the original Theros. That set was really special. That was when I really got back into Magic. I had played off and on my whole life for the last 20 years, but Theros is when I really got into it with my college roommate. We went and played Limited at our local game store. We had a little sealed league that went on for like several weeks, and as you won, you could add another pack to your sealed pool, and there was just something special, really special about monstrosity and heroic and all the flavor of Greek mythology, which I absolutely love. Greek mythology. I love reading the OG myths, so that was a really special set for me, and it meant a lot, as that's really when I got back into Magic and started actually playing at my LGS rather than just my kitchen table, and really started my love for Magic that got a lot more serious than it had been in the past in my life. Chesson Saram asked, hey, I discovered your channel just yesterday and I'm really enjoying your content. Well, thank you, glad to hear it. I have two questions. What do you think about old foils, pre-mirrored and stuff, as investments? And do you play Pauper? Keep up the good work. Cheers from Czech Republic. First of all, Czech Republic, really cool country. I unfortunately have only spent about 5 hours in Prague. I did a tour of Europe back when I was wrapping up college, and Prague was not on the original agenda, but we were able to add one night there. So literally it was like 4 or 5 hours was all I got. I can't wait to go back and see more of the city. For any of you who remember the old Silver and Cold AFI music video, it gives you a little taste of Prague. So old foils, that's a really good question. Is that's a good investment? I mean, just like any subcategory and any niche hobby, first thing I always have to say is there's a lot of risk associated with this. No one can predict the future. No one knows what the market will look like for these. So if we're talking about money that is in the extreme risk category of our investment portfolio, I'd say sure, why not? I think there's some really cool stuff there. There's something about classic. I mean, the shooting star foil is really special, and in a way, those old original foils are kind of like a reserve list, right? I mean, they can be reprinted, they can be redone, and they probably will, right? I mean, we see that they're reprinting the reserve list and non-tournament legal cards. They're gonna do, they've done time-spiraled remasters. There's another remastered one coming up. Is it Dominaria? I can't remember. What's the remastered one coming up next year? So there's a good chance that they do remastered sets of all these old sets and they reprint the cards that are really valuable. But there's nothing like the original OG version of a card, and so some of those foils are going to hold a premium and will be chased after for a long time coming, especially if they're playable in eternal formats. That's going to be a big factor because it's not just people who want to collect it. You're also going to have people who want to put it in their actual decks and play with them. So if you got a couple things like that going, yeah, sure, those could be some solid investments over time that end up going up in value, but it's really hard to predict that stuff and know when or how much the return will ever be. And lastly, no, I don't play Pauper. I played a little bit a couple years ago, online, but I really haven't played for a few years. Sophia Hetrick asks, what do you love and hate most about this game? Good question. For the hate side of it, Tron, big mana decks, Titan, don't like them. In all seriousness, I mean, yeah, I really don't like the combo side of the game when it's too powerful and too consistent, but some people love it, whatever. I definitely prefer a more interactive game, which is one reason why I've really been loving Limited a lot more lately over the last couple of years. Limited is just something special, a really fun way to play Magic as it was truly intended. And then what do I love most about the game? Honestly, everything. I mean, just the art, the cards, the collectability of it. Actually playing the game is obviously a lot of fun. Not all formats are equal and not all decks are fun to play against, like I said, but the actual playing the game is fun, but it's so much more than just playing the game, right? I mean, organizing your collection, pimping out your decks, customizing your decks. I really love it all. Jesse Swaim asks, what's your social media presence besides YouTube? How can we reach out to you with real questions? Great question, Jesse. So actually, I don't have any social media. I haven't for many years, and I don't really plan to. I know that people say if you want to grow your YouTube channel, you really need to make yourself a personal brand and all that, but it really wouldn't be true to myself. I wouldn't monitor those accounts effectively. I don't really like social media as a whole. So unfortunately, nothing there. Way you can reach out to me, you can always email me at magicmetalmoney@gmail.com. I do monitor that. It's in the description of every YouTube video, including this one. But also, another way to reach out to me coming soon, this is a good chance to give you a sneak preview. I am going to be launching a Patreon later down the road. I have a lot of plans for this. I'm really excited about it. But I don't want to do it too early before I'm really ready to support it, because this is not just going to be a simple Patreon of, hey, I'll put your name in the credits and that's it. I really want this to be a cool experience and a cool environment with some really cool value and rewards for people who join. So I want to make sure I can give that the appropriate time and attention that I need. And I'm getting really close to doing that. It'll be coming out later this year. Donald Kwan asked, Bitcoin, LUNC, or gold for the coming Armageddon? I'll be honest, I don't know if that's pronounced Lunk or UNLC. I had to Google it. This is a good question. I don't know if it's actually a trolling question or a serious question. We don't know. Armageddon comes, none of it's going to really matter if it's true Armageddon, right? But I mean, I'm not really, I don't like cryptocurrencies for a number of reasons. I don't really want to get into it during this video. That's a pretty long discussion. But in short, it's just not something I'm interested in parking a lot of money. Sure, if you want to do a small percentage of your investment portfolio in the high risk category, just like anything else, including Magic in general, sure, I'm not going to bash it, whatever. But as far as a major way to park my wealth, not something I'm interested in. Same with cryptocurrencies in general, no matter which one. And then gold, I mean, sure, there's always value in having real solid gold. It'll always be some type of stable investment. It's usually not something I'd put a ton of money in, but there's always some value there in having the real value of something that is precious and scarce and can be exchanged. Ed Steminator asked, what specifically do you collect? Vintage, graded stuff, sealed, or of those, what will you be buried with in 69 years, give or take? All right, well, 69 years, I'll be 100 years old. I'm down to live till I'm 100, so cool. Appreciate the well wishes there. What I collect, so I personally, for collecting, I always love picking up 7th edition cards. It's when I started playing back 20 years ago in 5th grade, so that's always got a special place in my heart. I've been collecting the Pain Lands, actually, for the last few years, just kind of randomly. The original Pain Lands with all the different arts, they've got a special place. I like them. I think they're pretty cool. Before they were reprinted in Dominaria United. I know they're not the best lands, but I think they're really cool with all the different art variations. I like the age of the cards. And then, of course, Unlimited Lightning Bolts. I've got a pretty sizable collection of those and try to pick up whenever I see a good deal on a nice, pristine looking one that's, I can't help myself. I think they're just absolutely beautiful. What will I be buried with? I mean, I don't know. None of it? All of it? And then for investment side, not really collecting, but I do a lot of sealed product and I keep it sealed. So maybe that's what I'll be buried with, I guess. I don't have any plans to sell in any near future, but, maybe down the road when there comes a day when I look at my mortgage and I look at my Magic sealed collection and I think those numbers are equal, that's a real change where it's like, hey, my life will be different with no mortgage left. So maybe that'll be the day, but many years down the road, nothing immediate. JH said, can someone let me know if Flesh and Blood is dead and what's up with the company not releasing print run numbers anymore? Congrats on the sub. I subscribed as well. Awesome. Welcome again. Appreciate it, JH. Flesh and Blood, honestly, don't really follow it. There's lots of other channels out there that are going to have better information than myself. So while I could maybe give you some half-baked answer, I really just recommend going to something who knows more about it. Flesh and Blood looks like a really cool game. In a world where I don't have a full-time job, yeah, I'd probably play it in addition to Magic. But realistically, I just have some Flesh and Blood because, it's a cool game. It could take off and it could be successful down the road. And maybe one day, I get into it and I have some original stuff to open up or sell or whatever. Your own Van Akeren. Sorry, I'm sure I pronounced that wrong. My Dutch brother, as much as I love my heritage and the country and the culture, I don't speak the language. Sorry. I don't know when you started, but looking back at the cards released in your starting year, which 3 of them give you the most nostalgic feelings and why? Great question. So I did start back in 7th edition, as I mentioned earlier, back in like 2001, I think. So 7th edition, so special to me. I got the starter pack and it came with a CD-ROM that taught you how to play the game. And in the CD-ROM, there came a little animation video with a fight between Rocks and Thorn Elemental. And of course, it came with like a all foil Thorn Elemental that was just the biggest, baddest thing around. You land your Thorn Elemental maybe a turn early because you had Llanowar Elves, and you just smack your opponent for 7 every turn. So, I love that card. It will always be nostalgic to me. And Rocks as well. And also Crimson Hellkite. My buddy had both those cards. My buddy Brad Duke. Congrats on getting married, by the way, later this next month. So he got me into Magic, and he had both Rocks and Crimson Hellkite. We thought those cards were just so OP, but those are a few of my favorite nostalgic cards from that era. Daniel Simoes asked, do you invest in sealed product? If so, what are you eyeing/holding? Preference for draft set collectors for the long run? This is a really good question. So I definitely do hold on to sealed product, and I kind of just do a variety. So I'll kind of just take whatever. I don't buy a lot of collector boosters at release, because what we've seen over the last year and a half, 2 years, that they typically will go down after the hype is over, and there's just so much Magic product being pumped out. I mean, every day there's something new product you can buy. So for that reason, I usually don't buy then, but I'll diversify, and I kind of try to buy some draft and collector boosters from every set. Occasionally I'll get a set booster if I see a good price for it, again, something like that. But I really prefer drafting collector boosters for 2 main reasons. Draft is because of the actual draftability of the set, right? I mean, it's going to be the OG. That's what you got. That's like what it's like opening packs. And you can actually do old school vintage drafts with these sealed product. That's an important part of the value long term. Collector boosters I really like because of the size. I mean, the amount of dollar per cubic inch of your storage space. I mean, this is inventory management, right? It's nice having that be way more dense. You can fit hundreds and hundreds of dollars in the same amount of space as $100 of a draft booster box. So I really like it for that reason. And then of course, the premium product that it comes with. There's always the special edition foils and the chase cards and the certain editions you can only get in the collector boosters. So for that reason, I see those as being valuable as well. Set boosters, I just don't really go after, because again, there's only so much I can do, and I don't really see the need for it. You can't really draft it. I mean, sure you could, but with all the space that it takes up, why not just go with a draft booster? That's how I see it, because then again, the playability is a big factor there, and those two just kind of compete. They're too similar in my mind to be of real value there. Tal Shipman asked, first, I have 0 secondary education, i.e. college or certifications. I have 15 years in the cooking industry / baking, another 3 years. What for my first step be for better paying employment? I'm sick of working 2 or 3 dead-end jobs just to get by. Like, do I bite the bullet and go to college for something? I hate cooking, but it's always a job available. First of all, Tal Shipman, thank you so much for asking this type of question. I'm going to answer it more in general principles, because of course that's like no one can really answer that but you. But I think this is a really important question. And Tal, by the way, for all the rest of you, this guy has gone back and watched all of my videos. I mean, for the past several years of content I've been producing. This channel started just as a finance discussion with horrible lighting, horrible audio quality. Not that it's that amazing now, but it was a lot worse in the original days. No script writing, but there was some still good information out there. It just wasn't presented very well, in my opinion. He's gone back and watched all those videos. So the hustle and the hunger and the thirst you have here to succeed, that's awesome. That's a really good sign to me. In general, when it comes to like, do I go to college, or do I go to a trade school and bite the bullet and try to increase my education so I can increase, my skill set? The risk reward there and the payoff is going to be different for everyone. How are you funding the education, right? How interested are you? How likely are you to succeed? Obviously, there's no guarantees, but if it's a subject you really enjoy and you already excel at, you're a lot more likely to do well at it, getting your certification or your degree that you're wanting, and thus lowering the risk, right? Because obviously you could start and spin your wheels and go to college, get a few credits, drop out, and not be able to afford it for a number of reasons. So I think having a real big game plan is important to approach a subject like this. I'm not going to, again, no specific advice for you or anyone else, but I think there's some important principles to consider here. Making sure you consider the cost, right? The time, the effort, the energy, the social cost. I mean, it's a lot, but it could also be really, really worth it. It can pay huge dividends down the road. So, I mean, if you want to increase the amount of money you can make, you got to increase the value you offer the workplace, right? The workforce, and have the unique skill sets that you have, right? The more skills you have, the less replaceable you are. If your job is to just simply push a blue button all day, most humans can push a blue button all day. right? And I'm even colorblind. I can probably manage that. I might have to write blue on it, spell it out, but I could probably do that, and most people could. But if their job is way more complex and it involves doing a lot of, math to understand which button you need to push and when, and that button changes all the time, that's going to be a lot harder. That's going to be a lot more difficult to replace, thus increasing the value that you have to offer and increasing how much you can make. So, I think hopefully that helps. You can kind of consider this. I think it's awesome. I think it's always great for people to increase their education. And I would say if you're not sure about all this and you're not sure what you want to go into, figure out what you really enjoy, what interests you. It doesn't have to be your major passion. Like, I love video games. I want to be a Twitch streamer. It can just be subjects that interest you, right? You like business, you like advertising, you like history, whatever it is, you like cars. You think about those types of things that you actually like, because if you just go to school for the sake of going to school, it's kind of miserable. As someone who has a great degree and could go to a good school, honestly, my general classes were still really difficult, and I always consider myself a good student, and my general classes, because I wasn't necessarily interested in them, was a lot harder to be motivated for those versus when I got into the business school and I could actually just take my accounting courses and my marketing courses and my finance courses and just love them and be obsessed with them and do really well in them because I loved the material. So hopefully that helps you there. Breakstop asks, in your opinion, which commander is the most death metal? Which metal show was the first one you ever attended? All right, unfortunately, I don't actually play Commander, so I can't give you a good answer here. I don't really know which commanders are the most death metal. That being said, years ago, the first and only Commander deck I ever made, I used Erois, so, the God of War, right? God of Victory, but we all know it's really the God of War. It was pretty sick, so I guess I'll go with that. My first metal show ever, it might have been As I Lay Dying with Between the Buried and Me, but I actually think before that is when I went to the Sounds of the Underground tour. Shout out, let me know in the comments if you happened to go to this concert back in 2007 or something like that. So, we had Every Time I Die was there. I remember watching this dude just get knocked out by a security guard while they were playing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so intense. This is so scary. At the time when that happened, I was in line for the meet and greet of The Devil Wears Prada. And this was I think Plagues had barely been released. So this was OG The Devil Wears Prada. It was the first time they'd ever played in Salt Lake City. They're from Ohio, so they'd never been that far out west. That's how small the band was at the time. It was really cool. I was excited to see them. Guar was the headliner. Yikes. That was something else. Let's see. Amon Amarth was there. So I went with my buddy Derek. My buddy Prince wasn't allowed to go because there was a band called Goat Whore who played there. And when his parents saw a band called Goat Whore, they said, no way, you're not going to this show. So sorry, Prince, you weren't able to make it. But my parents didn't, I think, know the lineup exactly. So Derek and I went. Then we were like, oh, well, Guar's playing. They're headlining. Let's stick around. When else will we ever see Guar? Yeah, that was fun for about 5 minutes, and then we left after a major stomach ache. That was not my appetite, not for me. The type of entertainment they put on there was fun for a few minutes, then they got real dark real fast, and it was an experience to be remembered. I'll just say that. Joshua Edelin asked, hey man, do you think in the next 10 years Magic the Gathering will still be around? With them printing proxies and possibly reprinting old whole sets of proxies, do you actually think this will survive? This is a really viable question at this point in time, and the reality is, yeah, I absolutely think Magic will be around. Is it going to be the same game as it is now? No, and I hope it's not. I hope it's better than it is, and it's not the same game it was 10 years ago, and in some ways it's better, and in some ways it's probably worse. And yeah, I can see the fear of being like, oh, they're printing all this old stuff. They're trying to milk this cow before it dies. Let me tell you, when you have an asset, a company that's valued in the billions of dollars, you don't throw that away. Yeah, and that's not to say it can't disappear, but there's going to be a lot of energy and effort put into keeping this company alive. It might not always be the nerd game that we love and is so nostalgic, but I absolutely think that the game will exist and will definitely be here in 10 years. But crazier things have happened. Not all companies last forever. DDR Guy 300, a bit of a late sub, but I'd really like to know your opinion on two things. One, do you have any ideas on how to solve the MTG problem of the mana system? Getting mana flooded and mana screwed. He says, the answer of playing thousands of games is not, for me, it's not an acceptable answer. Saying it averages out, I think is what he's trying to say there. I hate alchemy, but it is kind of the perfect place for this. So basically, how do you deal with mana screw, mana flood? I'm not a game designer. Shoot, I don't know. I think they've made it a lot better. They've done a lot of things in the game to reduce this, believe it or not. So you played the game 8-10 years ago. I mean, the mulligan rules were really different, obviously, and those have gotten a lot better. Making scry an evergreen mechanic and introducing it to all colors, giving you more card selection in general, and really spreading that out through the color pie in different ways. That's definitely a big factor to help you, right? I mean, things like, you think about the temples, those were huge, allowing every color combination the ability to scry and reduce the amount of flood or screw that happen. But it's always going to be part of the game, and that's just a reality. I don't have a way to fix it. There's the new game that they have. I can't even think of the name of it. My buddy JD's been playing it. It was launched on mobile. It's not very big. I can't even think of the name. Sorry, Spell Slingers or something like that. MTG Spell Slingers. It's more where you don't have that, right? Your deck is just spells, and then you get an added mana every turn. So there is another game out there. You can give that a shot. Maybe you'll like that. Second question, what is your opinion on card grading? I think it's just a complete and total scam. It's just like crypto NFTs, but with a longer life cycle, but at the end, it's the same goal in mind, to not be the one holding the hot potato or bag when it all goes to hell. And it goes on to give an example. So card grading, I mean, is it a scam? I don't know. I mean, you're basically just giving some outside authority to provide the opinion on the card, and you have this third-party entity who bases their reputation on these certifications, right? It's essentially what you're giving it with a grade. You're giving it a certification. So I think there's some value there. I don't know if it's a total scam. I mean, as far as the collectability is concerned, like, yeah, they're really expensive, and if that's what you're talking about, like the collectability of them and saying, hey, if you get a created version, I mean, I don't think it's a total scam. I think there's value there, but if you don't like it, don't do it. Simple as that. Last questions of the day. Bonga Tum Tum asked, I have a few. First one, is your actual work in finance or is it just a hobby? My full-time job, I do work in software. I'm a customer success manager. Right now, the industry that I've been in for the last year and a half is the health science space, so life science companies who make drugs or medical devices. But for many years before that, the industry I was in was the finance sector, so all my customers were banks and credit unions. That being said, I still wasn't like giving financial advice or anything, but I'm very well versed in the world of finance. I don't have any certifications. I did study accounting back in college. I think finance is really important and it's really interesting. I don't necessarily work in it per se, but I've done work in the industry. What formats do you regularly play? I mostly play Modern, first and foremost. I play a little Pioneer too. So I played Pioneer when it first launched back in October of 2019. In like January or February, I got a top 4 in a PPTQ, qualifying me for the RPTQ. Then the world got shut down and we no longer got to play Magic. And I haven't really picked up Pioneer since. I mean, occasionally I'll play online and play a league here and there. But my new LGS that I've now moved to, there's a pretty good Pioneer scene. It's also a good Modern scene, so I'm still playing Modern. But I'll get back into Pioneer soon enough. Eventually I will. Then, of course, I love Limited. I've been really liking it more and more. It's a really fun format for me. Different formats, but fun way to play Magic. Final question of the day. Do you dig more extreme forms of metal like black metal or death metal? Honestly, not so much. I'll listen to it on occasion, some harder stuff, but usually it's more in the metalcore vibes, or I'll listen to screamo or like old emo music and stuff like that too. So occasionally, like the other day, I was listening to Ginger's set at Hellfest from this most recent summer, which was actually really cool to hear about them talk about their experience as citizens of a war-torn country. So I recommend checking out that set. It's really great music. I don't know if you consider them black metal or death metal. They're harder than what I usually listen to, but it was a really cool set. That's it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed this longer formatted video. It's not something I'm going to do very often. Next one will be at 10,000 or maybe 50,000 subs. Till then, I'm going to keep grinding, and stay tuned for the next video coming soon. It's going to be a little different, a little unique, and I'm pretty excited for it.